All right, High Rollers, very much looking forward to our chat today. One of the PDC frontmen, a guy who really does have the best seat in the house for all the action, all the big shots, the big name players, and all that big drama that happens week in, week out on the Pro Tour. Likely has to dodge a few bounce outs too. Darts referee and LGBT ambassador Huw Ware is our guest today. At Huw Ware 100 on Twitter. He can belt out a 180 call with the best of them, folks. Huw, appreciate your time, man. Thanks for being our high roller today.
That's no problem. Thank you for having me on.
First off, I know you've been involved in a few firsts of late. Let's start with your first Euro Tour 180. I saw the tweet from Dan Dawson providing photo evidence. Nice shooting, sir.
I was thinking it was a 180 must have been thrown by someone else. Yeah, no, it was a surprise to us all. I think I missed a 180 like 2 or 3 turns before, so I must have been having a good 2 minutes because and then after the 180, everything just fell apart totally, and I was reminded as to why I'm a referee and not a pro player.
Yeah, they make it look so easy, right? It's not an easy thing to do to score a 180. Many people never get one.
Exactly, yeah. It's so hard to do it. Well, it's so hard to do it in practice, let alone on stage, big lights, thousands of people, streaming, television. How they do it, I'm not entirely sure. I really admire them, to be able to get up there and play as well as what they do.
They really do. Now, what happens with you guys? Are you guys got the officials backstage having your own tournament, your own ranking points, your own merit of order, or what? What's going on there?
I think we were literally just between sessions, and to pass the time, we were playing darts. Dan Dawson was playing, and Paul Nicholson, a couple of guys from the streaming team were playing. So we were just passing the time, just having fun.
You also recently called out your first 9-darter on the Euro Tour, James Wade landing perfection at the German Open. That's got to be a special moment for you.
Yeah, that was amazing. After the treble 19 went in, I had a quick look at what the score was because I just thought, this is going in. There's just no way this is going to miss. So it's going to be a game shot and the whatever leg it was. So I had a quick look at the scores, and I think it was the 4th leg, wasn't it, of the match. So yeah, it was just interesting how I just thought there's no way this double 12 is going to miss, and it didn't. It was amazing.
I'll tell you what, you talk about that feeling of these guys just not missing, and James Wade is one of those guys. He's really upped his game of late. Some of these players, when they're in the zone, you don't expect them to miss at all, do you?
No, the whole game between James and Darren was amazing. I think Darren had 5 perfect darts, the very next leg after the 9. But the whole match was just played at an amazing standard. It was 6-5. I think from what I remember, it was just so difficult for one player to break the other because the standard was so high in the game. Definitely overall, not just for the 9 darts, but definitely overall, one of the best games I've ever refereed, the standard.
Yeah, the standard these days is absolute quality. I mentioned earlier, you have the best seat in the house. There's so much drama at times in darts. I mean, how do you as a referee stay focused? How do you stay calm in these big moments, all these crescendos during a darts match? It gets pretty intense up there sometimes.
Yeah, well, you just concentrate, really, and you focus as hard as you can and try and block out in some ways a lot of things. Although having said that, you do just kind of concentrate very much on the stage as much as anything else. The crowd is great, obviously. I tend to keep my focus on a small box area where there's 2 players, the jockey, the dartboard, the 2 markers, and that's it,
That's the way to do it because it happens so fast. Some of these players throw so fast. I mean, you got to be in the zone as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, obviously the scores are important, but also there's other things. You're aware of a lot of other things, maybe more external factors, especially these days. Yeah.
Now, we've seen some contentious moments on the stage of late. Price Anderson at the Grand Slam. Max Hopp, Keegan Brown had words after their match a few weeks ago. Last week in the Premier League as well, Price v. Gurney. Can you as a ref feel those moments building? Can you feel the mercury rising? And I'm also wondering your thoughts on the way George Noble handled that situation in the Premier League. I mean, he got right there in the middle of things.
Well, I think obviously with the refereeing, the one thing I can say is that the referee is the most important person up there when it comes to the final decision making. The referee is the one with the authority. Whatever decision he makes, it is the important one. And I would back any referee in whatever decision that they make. There's a lot of pressure on these players. It may just look like a game of darts, but also for them, it's not. It's their professional living. It's their professional livelihood. They're playing for big money. And it's like they have to win. So there's a lot of pressure on these guys. And I think a lot of, if there are incidents on stage, I think that's symptomatic of the pressure that they are under. But as a referee, obviously, the job is to keep the status quo. If there are things that need to be calmed down, then that is, our responsibility to sort of get involved. But as I say, like, whatever the referee decides, whether he ignores something or whether he gets involved, whatever, he is making the right call. He's the one in charge. He's the one whose decision has to be respected.
He's got the final say, and I'll tell you what, I love the way George Noble handled that, showed no fear. These are not small guys, and he got right in there and kind of diffused the situation, so good job to him, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We're going to talk more about Gerwyn Price in a second. He's one of the big names in darts right now. I know you've done some exhibition work with him. But first, I want to talk about the Rainbow Laces campaign and your role as darts LGBT ambassador. That has to be an honor for you. I know it's about awareness and education, right? Homophobia in sports, it's a real thing, and it's been that way for a long time, right?
Well, yes, it has. And I think probably a lot of that has been to do with the fact that there hasn't been a lot of visibility in the overall history of sports. It's probably been over the last 10 years, really, that more and more people have started to become more visible in more than one different sport. And now I think sport is like, oh, okay, this is not just real, this is very real, because it's, there's a lot of different people who are coming out in their various sports, whether they're referees, whether they're players, no matter what sort of capacity they're in, LGBT plus people are absolutely out there. And I think the more visibility there is to that, the better.
I was running down your Twitter timeline. You recently tweeted this out. I'm proud to have hashtag come out for LGBT because no matter what area you work in, everyone has the right to be themselves. And that's a key statement right there.
Yeah, I think that's basically it. I mean, I'm involved in darts as a referee, not because I'm gay, but because I want to be a darts referee.
Right.
Like, I'm a darts referee first. I'm a gay person second. It's not the case that, like, my sexuality doesn't have anything to do with my ability to be a referee, but neither should it stop me from becoming a darts referee. Now, you may say on the other side of that, well, why did you come out in the first place? If it doesn't affect my darts refereeing, then why do it? And the answer is because it's okay. Because at the same time, we need to show that it is okay to be openly gay or bi or transgender or whatever and be involved. That message has to be out there. That unfortunately with the way the world is, we need that visibility, really.
Well, a couple of other things I find very interesting, and I think it's very important. Darts aside, just in life, you retweeted a post from Nigel Owens, a rugby referee, where he's quoted as saying this: unless you're happy within yourself and happy within your life, you can't be the best you can be or excel to your potential in whatever you're doing. And in fact, when you came out a few years ago in 2014, in your statement you said, one of the most difficult things about not being open about yourself is that you can make friends with people who don't necessarily see you in your full light and honest light. Essentially, you're living a lie. That's a tough thing.
Yeah, and I remember, like, when I first got into sort of like pro darts and stuff, I was very stony-faced, if you like, very placid, just like not, because I was hiding who I was, and I wasn't allowing myself to be me. So it took a few years, and gradually I got there. But it is absolutely true that I think even when I go on stage, I feel happier. There's a weight lifted off the shoulders.
Right.
And that ultimately does help me as a referee, yes, absolutely. And especially like we were talking earlier about communication with players, I've been absolutely upfront and honest with them. And I think a lot of them respect that. And I think if I do need to talk to players or whatever, I do think that does help. The fact that I've been so open with them and they've been so receptive back to me, I think that helps.
I was going to ask you about that. What kind of response have you had from the darts community as a whole? The fans, the players, you're getting a lot of attention these days. There was a big article in Sky Sports about you back in January. I mean, your face is always on TV. In your new role as ambassador, you're getting some more attention. What's it been like for you since those articles and all these things have happened?
It's been good. I mean, I think probably the best thing about it was when the Rainbow Laces happened, I had a lot of messages, a lot of lovely messages from people wishing me all the best, so good for you and stuff. And I also had messages from darts fans, who are gay, who explained to me that what we're doing is really helping. It's nice to have that representation out there. As darts fans, I think that's probably the best thing that happened, really. So it goes to show it does help. These campaigns and these movements do absolutely have a positive effect for people.
Well, absolutely, and I think you're doing a fine job. It's still interesting, though, that more officials rather than players have come out in recent years. You find that interesting? I mean, it's a big barrier, isn't it, in professional sport, all these guys trying to show off their testosterone week in, week out.
Yeah, well, again, I think it's a lot of officials do it because they feel, okay, well, communication is going to be a big part of the job, especially like if you look at Nigel Owens, obviously communication as a rugby referee is vital. Football the same. Darts the same. If you're an official, communication with players is a massive thing. And I think for a lot of us, it's kind of like, well, in order to have the full respect from the players, we need to be totally honest with them. Can we expect full honesty back if we're not fully honest with them? And there is a certain interpersonalness to that. I think that's probably why a lot of us do it.
Well, I appreciate it, and I wish you all the best with the Rainbow Laces and all of this raising attention, because I do think you're doing a good thing, and I do think it's important. Okay, I'm watching the Austrian Darts Open where, unless I'm mistaken, you did all the calling. A busy weekend for you. MVG won it again. I mean, another thrilling final, beat Ian White, who responded in kind by winning the European Darts Grand Prix 2 days ago. Russ Bray did all the calling there. I mean, I hope you're appreciating what you get to see week in, week out in the brilliance of Michael van Gerwen. This guy's going to go down as one of the all-timers.
Oh, absolutely. I wish I could just raise my hand and throw and just hit the targets he does, because that's what he does. He stands there, leans forward, just raises the arm, brings it back and chucks and it goes in. He does amazing things on the dartboard. And he will, as you say, absolutely go down as one of the best dart players ever. In fact, I think he probably already has. I think he's probably already reached that mark, because it's just so obvious how good he is and, what he will achieve, because his temperament is also so good. If that's not too bold for me to say. He has a fantastic self-belief, which you need. He's aware of how good he is, and that serves him really, really well. And whenever he loses, he says, well, I lost by myself. He doesn't try to blame other people. He doesn't make excuses. He always looks to himself as to why he lost. And he says, it was my fault, which is the perfect attitude to have. Because, sometimes he does get beaten, but I think it's that temperament and attitude which brings him back stronger the next time.
Yeah, the way he handles himself is extraordinary. I mean, he's certainly great for the game, and man, is he fantastic. He makes it look so easy. I find it interesting that you say he's already there. That is saying something with the dominance of Phil Taylor over the years, a 16-time world champ, and Michael van Gerwen is the best ever. I mean, that is really saying something.
Oh, well, no, I mean, I think he's one of the best ever. I mean, it's not for me to say whether he's going to be the best ever. I mean, I grew up with Phil Taylor, being the dominant force, and what he did was absolutely extraordinary. I mean, ultimately, everyone's going to have their different opinions on that subject. It's going to be like pub talk, fan talk, isn't it? There are going to be arguments for Phil Taylor, there's going to be arguments for Van Gogh, there's going to be arguments for Eric Bristow, or John Lowe, or Jockey Wilson, or something. It's all just a matter of opinion. But what I would say is that he is absolutely up there with the best. Sir Alex Ferguson said, someone asked him a question about Ronaldo or Messi, and he turned around and he said, well, what I will say is that the best players could play in any generation. And I think that's absolutely true. I think that's one thing that we can say is that if Eric Bristow was starting today, he would still be Eric Bristow.
Right.
With all of his achievements and everything else. Michael van Gerwen could have played in the 70s and still be like the best player in the world, or whatever. Phil Taylor could have played in the 80s or 70s. John Lowe would still be very, very successful today. And I think that's a nice way of looking at it, really, that the best players could play on any dartboard, any stage, any venue, any time, any era, no matter what the standard was at the time. And I absolutely believe that Michael van Gerwen's one of those players.
Well said. I've never heard it put that way, but I really like it. I'm probably going to steal that in the future, just so you know. I mean, I think...
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. I think you must be standing there calling his matches MVG sometimes and just have surreal moments to yourself, because years from now, I got to believe you're going to be looking back and telling family members and friends, I mean, I was there when this guy was at his best.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we have to enjoy what these players are doing. And I guess, that could apply to like all of the players these days, because the standard is so high, and the depth of standard has arguably never been higher. Yeah, we have to enjoy it. I mean, you see what we're doing with like the World Series and the Premier League, and there's 5,000 to 10,000 people selling out these arenas every week. I mean, this is a golden period for darts. I mean, last year we were in Schalke football stadium with like 20,000 people. There was darts and there was music. I mean, it was just like extraordinary. Like who could have thought that would be possible 10, 15 years ago? But here we are, and it's happening. And it's just this whole era has got to be something to be enjoyed.
Well, it really seems to be in a very good spot right now. I mean, you look at the European tour, it's taken off. You mentioned it, great fans, great venues, competitive play, great matches. You even have an MC strumming a guitar in between. I mean, the product is so good these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think, places like Austria and the Czech Republic, they're going to Prague very soon, Denmark, Copenhagen. The PDC are really trying to make this a global sport now, not just a sport that's centric to the UK. They really are doing so well with it. The World Series has taken off, quite literally. And so the market is there. The amount of fans that turn up. I remember going to a place called Saarbrücken, and Saarbrücken is actually quite a small town in Germany. 3,000 or 4,000 people turned up for like every session. They're mad for it in Germany. It's absolutely huge. They are so enthusiastic for it. And that's down to the hard work of so many people. And to the players for putting on a fantastic show.
Well, I'm in Canada, and I'll tell you, one of the best investments I've made is the subscription to PDC.TV. I get all these events on my computer. It's early for me here. Those afternoon sessions are quite early for me, but I'll tell you what, I'm up and watching, and I got to suggest that to all my viewers, my listeners. PDC.TV. If you love the darts, get the subscription, because it's live streamed and it's fantastic. And you talk about all the venues and those fans. The atmosphere sometimes is just unbelievable. Now, you're up close and personal. You're closer than most of us. I watch it, but you're there feeling it as well. You get to hear things. In a few cases, I mean, the Grand Slam of Farts comes to mind. You can even smell these guys. Can you tell us some things that maybe we don't hear or see that you do? I'm sure they've got to say some things or mutter some things to themselves as they approach the board to retrieve either a good or bad shot. Some funny stuff, anything?
I don't know whether I can say funny as such. I mean, players are coming to the boards angry with themselves or muttering under their breath or something. I mean, because, well, like I was saying earlier, this is their livelihood and they're under pressure, and and they're trying to G themselves up. So I wouldn't say it was necessarily funny. But I remember when I was in the BDO, Martin Phillips had a bounce out. I can't remember where we were. It's like the World Masters or something, I think. And his dart bounced out, and I picked it up for him. And just out of nowhere, he just said, "Oh yeah, help the aged," he goes. I just thought that was really funny. I don't know why. It's just like it was just the last thing I expected him to say, which was a funny moment. I seem to remember. But yeah, I mean, if a player is angry with themselves, then I don't get involved unless they've obviously completely lost it. But then that really sort of never happens. You just kind of leave them to it in those moments. As long as they're not angry enough that they're putting off the opponent, like if they mutter something as they walk past the opponent, you know what I mean, when the guy's trying to take his throw. As long as they don't step over that line, then I don't get involved.
I want to ask you about a very polarizing figure on the tour right now, Gerwyn Price, huge presence on the stage. I'm a big fan. I like the guy. He wears his heart on his sleeve. What's that roar like, by the way, when he belts it out there? I mean, it's loud, right?
Well, I mean, as a referee, I mean, he's no different from any other player in the sense of, you know, whether he crosses the line or not. You know, I mean, I treat everybody the same when I'm up there. I mean, Gezi does what he does, you know, and that's fine as long as he doesn't cross the line,
right?
In my opinion.
Well, I like the guy, and I like watching him. I think he's very entertaining, very competitive, and what he's done in such a short time, I mean, you can tell he's an intense guy, and he really brings it very competitive. I know you've worked with him on exhibitions, right, through JBDS Sports Agent. What's he like in that environment, away from the stage, behind the scenes? What kind of interactions have you had with him?
Yeah, I did 2 exhibitions in 3 nights with him, and it wasn't long after the Grand Slam of Darts final, and he was really, really good. Honestly, he really threw some great darts. I mean, obviously, the crowd were having a bit of banter with him. You know, he absolutely handled it in the right way. He turned around, gave it a bit back, you know, threw great darts, and we had 2 really, really good nights together. I mean, I get on with Gerwyn as well. You know, I've always found him to be really, really nice company. You know, I've spent time with him after he's come off stage and lost matches. Always found him to be really, really enjoyable, engaging company, funny. So, yeah, no, I do get on with him, very much so. And when it comes to, you know, when we're on stage together, I obviously don't treat him any differently from anybody else. And that's it, really.
I got to ask you about the Ali Pali before I let you go, the World Championships. It's the spectacle in any sport, right? I know it's a thrill for any player to take part at the Ali Pali, but it's also a thrill for the referees as well, I'm sure. You had your family on hand this year. What was that like for you?
Yeah, there was a real sort of strange quirk of coincidence personally for me, that I did the dates that I did at the World Championships. So it meant, well, it obviously meant a lot for my family to be there anyway, but on the backdrop of sort of like personally for me, you know, what was going on a few years ago at that time meant, well, I can't really put into words how much it meant, to be honest. Did the few days that they went really, really well. I really enjoyed it. It was a fantastic experience. We've had some great matches, you know, with those one match which went all the way to sudden death with Alan Norris and Steve Lennon. That was an amazing highlight. That was the day after my family were there, I think. And yeah, I as I say, I just really enjoyed it, and it went well. You know, it's sort of the most important thing. I think I did a good job. So, you know, that's what I was there to do first and foremost. And you know, I had a lot of great comments from people, from fans, from my colleagues. So, you know, they helped me a lot. Yeah, no, it was a fantastic time and a great learning experience, great life experience.
I think you do a fantastic job. I really do appreciate your time today. Huw Ware, LGBT Darts Ambassador, PDC referee, at Huw Ware 100 on Twitter. Huw, thanks so much, man. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries at all.